Welcome back to Cityline. With me, I have an amazing individual who is a part of, I think, one of the most amazing organizations here in Tacoma. I'm talking about the Tacoma Urban League. I have a weekly conversation with Tawana Nobles, and she does an amazing job leading this organization. And our individual sitting here is no different. He is the program manager of the Male Involvement Program. I'm talking about Antonio McLemore. Hello, Antonio. Welcome to Cityline.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so excited to talk a little bit about what we have going on in our community and our city, and about a lot of the great work that we're doing. And I want to give you your roses and thank you so much for creating space for us to talk about this great work. And I think the intersection between the work that we do and how organizations and places like yourself can help support us. So thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. You know what? Everybody needs to be doing this work, asking, at least as a white person, I ask, what can I do every day to help dismantle racism and to use my white privilege to move us to a point where we have dismantled all of this? So I want to first ask you a very personal question. You have some beautiful art behind you. Tell us what this is.
Yes, I do. So I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and during quarantine, right, and social distancing and having more hours around the house, to keep our children from being glued to Netflix or being glued to the television, we have created some artistic time and for our children to kind of express themselves. So behind me, you see, some pictures. I've been in ministry the last 7 years full time, and so some of my children's expression is from the environment that they've been in, and kind of my bottom right hand side, or maybe left, depending on how you're looking at this. There's some affirmations that my children do. And then this is my youngest, my 3-year-old. He was painting. I don't even know what that is, but and we have some crosses that my son was doing, or I don't know what it is, but just trying to create some artistic time for my children so that they can express themselves.
Oh, so we can't pick a better program manager for this because you live it. So Antonio, for people who have just moved here, or maybe because of they're now waking up and they're starting to understand what Black Lives Matter means, what is the Tacoma Urban League, and then how did you get involved with this program?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, because a lot of my arrival to the Tacoma Urban League had a lot to do with my personal conviction for the community, feeling called. Like I said, I've been in full-time ministry, and the word ministry in Hebrew means service, right? So I've always felt called to serve the community. I believe that these spaces should exist to serve the community, and it hasn't always been like that, right? So I take accountability for that, and wanting to be a part of the solution rather than just talking about the problem. I ended up transitioning from my full-time role. I worked for one of the largest evangelical churches in the country, and I just felt like I wanted to be in the middle of the crowd. I wanted to be where the people were, instead of asking them just to come to us for service. And so that's where I already knew, Tawana and Tawana Nobles, and I've always been, just admired her grind, her work ethic. And so she had sent me a few emails, saying that she was looking for someone to fill the role. And I just became a resource to kind of connect. And so I remember one day I ended up coming into the Tacoma Urban League, not even thinking about the role. I was in the middle of, completing my master's program, and I was developing some of my personal business that I do with full-time motivational speaking and some curricular development. And we just started talking about the community and my heart and her passion for the community. And it ended up turning into a formal interview. And so, I first want to just, honor Tawana and her work and her vision her vision for this community, her vision for people. I think her intentionality with people. And I also want to honor all of those who've gone before me. I'm a firm believer that we stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us.
Yes.
And so with John Levi and his great work, and Joseph and his entire team, and even the teams that have gone before him, I think what's incredible about the position that I sit in is I've found over the last, 6 months that I've been at the Tacoma Urban League, is that there are so many great leaders that have sat in these roles as mentors to young men. You have Deputy Mayor Keith Blocker. You have Brandon Irvin, who's an administrator for Tacoma Public School District. So there are so many great men that have come from this role. And I think it's good to know that if you are someone who feels called to serve the community, especially as a Black man, then there ends up being some connection to the Tacoma Urban League.
It does. Yeah. Antonio, tell us about the conference. It's gone virtual. Yes. How will that work?
Yes, that's a great question. Well, I'll hit those two questions in tandem, right? Because the conference was really birthed from a conviction. My father wasn't around growing up. I will be generous in saying that I spent maybe 60 of the 365 days of the year around my father. He lived in another state. Great, phenomenal man, but just didn't know how to be a father, wasn't around to be a father. And so there were a lot of moments in my life where I struggled with self-esteem, with my self-confidence. I didn't have any visible positive role models, right? My father wasn't around, so I was always searching, for affirmation from a male. And I remember being 22 years old. My minor's in sociology. And I remember writing a paper and it was talking about the impacts or the effect of fatherlessness. And it talked about, all of the things, like you talk about the prison, the pipeline, you talk about even our language, our young men's ability to develop language is affirmed from, their fathers. You talk about drug use, addiction, all those things, dropout rates, recidivism, all those things is centered around whether or not the father is engaged. And I remember crying. I'm crying, right? I play college football. So and I have roommates and they're like, what's wrong with Antonio? He's just crying. And I didn't know, when you watch TV for so long or you're staring at a screen and sometimes your emotions are disconnected from, and I'm wiping my eyes. I'm why am I crying? And I didn't realize at the age of 22 that I had these wounds. And so the male involvement conference, the male involvement program, the conference was really birthed from an opportunity to really serve our community virtually, right? Because, you talk about positive and consistent relationships or engagement. There are young people that will go their entire life and never have one positive engagement from a Black male. And so we wanted to create a space where young people or just our community in general could see Black men standing in solidarity, right? When's the last time you've been anywhere where you've seen 20 of the most dynamic, speakers, community leaders to be standing or, in solidarity or to be in one space? So in that respect, I'm grateful for COVID-19 because I don't know if there's a budget in Tacoma or room in Tacoma that could have allowed all of those great people to come.
Okay. In the we have 4 minutes and I want 4 hours with you. So much I want to ask you, but I also want to ask you, let's talk about, I know our viewers can register via the link that we're
Yes, they can go to TacomaUrbanLeague.org and register. They can go to through my page through Instagram, Antonio McLemore.
Okay.
And the link is on my bio.
Wonderful. So you have some amazing guest speakers and presenters. Tell us about them and then also tell us what you want our participants to walk away with.
Yes, it's great. So I think what's awesome about this particular conference is all of the speakers I have relationship with. I think it's a lost art. I think being relational capital is a lost art that young people haven't taught the skills of making friends. I've traveled all around the world, and I have friends everywhere I go. And I think it's just important that we're savvy with building relationships, because I believe that my greatest gift is the ability to bring people around the table, which someone told me, because I'm a Sagittarius and I was born the week of Thanksgiving, that's a part of what, I bring people to the table. And so we have some dynamic speakers that are doing the work. One of the things that I was saying is I want to, and there are so many people, friends that I have that I couldn't even just fit into. I would have to do a week conference, right, to get all my friends. But I said to myself, I want people that I know that are doing the work. We have a lot of people talking, and this is where I would tell our community to be mindful of people who are doing a lot of talking. Their mouths are moving, but we never see them in our community. And these are people that I know that they've made it their life mission to mentor. And so, when you ask about what do I want people to walk away with, I want our community, I want young people to walk away hearing why it is so consequential for them to understand why mentorship it's so consequential to their success. Like I've never met anyone who said, like, it's very seldom that I find someone who said, hey, that created any level of success in their life, and they did it on their own. Like, oh, I didn't have anyone. I just had a bunch of haters, and I just fought my whole way through, and I didn't have any friend. I think you will find people who have created success that they had friends to help them along the journey. And I'm not saying there aren't anomalies, but I'm saying that the ideal is you find people who have journeyed with other people to say, hey, in 10 miles, there's going to be a roadblock, and you want to be prepared for that. And this is how you prepare yourself. So the conversation is really about mentorship and about how I've avoided bumping my head because there were people who said, hey, watch out for this. I avoided putting my hands on things that could have hurt me because I had people that called me. Like to this day, I invite people to call me and they say, hey, Antonio, I heard you were talking about this. Bad idea, right? And I'm grateful for those people because they make me a better human being.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I use this analogy. You think about like an apple seed, right? An apple seed is not capable of becoming what it was designed to be on its own. It needs someone who will place it in its environment and who will help extract what's already inside. And that's what mentorship is about.
I love that. So who do we need to thank for making that ground fertile to put those young apple seeds in?
Yes, that's a great question. So, I mean, obviously, I want to thank the Tacoma Urban League, Tawana, Nobles. I have a staff, with Freddie Crumbly, who's, a staff. He rocks with me, rolls with me. But we have a full-time staff. These guys volunteer their time on a full-time capacity. And they make investments. I like using the word investing because they're investing into our students, because these guys are professionals who could be getting paid a lot of money to be doing what they're doing by investing in the young people, but they do it because they believe in the work. And I'm incredibly grateful for Nick Jeffries. I'm so incredibly thankful for Bryant Martinez. I'm so incredibly thankful for Christian Page and Joshua Walden. These people make what we do. Professor Tooncap. I'm incredibly thankful for the people that pour into young people. It would not be possible. I know Jennifer, who does a lot of our organizing. She helped me with the administrative nightmare of Zoom calls, right? Trying to figure all that out. So I am nothing without the people who lift my arms up.
All right. So we want to remind our audience that this is July 16th and July 17th, yes. Thursday and Friday, July 15th, 16th and 17th. Yes. And this is online. We've been showing your contact in the Tacoma Urban League.
Yes.
Antonio, I cannot thank you enough. This is a mystery. I can see it coming out of every pore of your body. And I thank you for looking at your upbringing and saying, I'm going to step in, break the cycle, and now I'm going to help our youth not have those aces that I have, and I'm going to come alongside them. You are such a gift. You have a spot on Cityline anytime you want.
Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. We have much more to come on Cityline, so don't go away. We'll be right back after this quick break.